Well, Canada is moving full steam ahead into Operation Solving Canada. Whatever that looks like, it's kind of unknown right now. But the parts that are known are that all the premiers across Canada are getting along with Carney better than ever. In fact, the relationship between the Prime Minister and all the premiers is apparently better than ever. Pipelines are going to be built, and it's so good that even the Premier of Ontario is now saying, Doug Ford is saying that Mark Carney is so good that we should give him the key to Canada, which is a very strange thing to say. And so here we are twiddling our thumbs and scratching our heads going, how the heck did we get here? Well, we're going to take a look at where exactly here is, because depending where you stand, chances are if you're watching this video, you did not vote Liberal, then it might anger you a little bit. So, hey, what's another day of Canadian news without being angry? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I really want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. We got a few things to take a look at, such as, for those who missed it, Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath frontman, dies at 76 years old today. Very sad news. Let's take a look.
All right, let's get to this. Heavy metal legend Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76. Is breaking news coming in. A giant in the world of music, larger-than-life character, well known for his on-stage antics in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. Ozzy Osbourne rode to prominence in the 1970s. That road began in 1968 with the founding of Black Sabbath, a huge heavy metal band. During the time, he adopted the nickname the Prince of Darkness. His death coming just 3 weeks, this is very poignant too when you think about it, after he reunited with his original Black Sabbath bandmates for a big concert in the United Kingdom. That concert happening on July the 5th. Osbourne had suffered from a Parkinson's type disease, many problems with his spine over the years. His first solo album, known as The Blizzard of Oz, went platinum 5 times in the United States, and he would go on to release another 10 solo albums. Let's bring in music commentator.
I mean, there you go. A legend, another legend has fallen, will forever be remembered. Rest in peace, my friend. And then now in the news, well, Canadian news specifically, we got to take a look at how even the CBC is admitting that if we didn't have tariffs on by the president of the United States, by America, we would still be in very much trouble. Kind of strange for the CBC to be admitting that, right?
Brian Kingston, your point that it's up to government to help find a way to make things competitive. Like we saw General Motors recently announced $4 billion to invest in expansion in the U.S., partly because of the tariffs, right? So this speaks to the challenge that exists there. What can Mark Carney and the premiers do to offset something like this?
Well, the most important thing right now is to get rid of the federal EV mandate, which I know we've talked about a few times, but this is having a direct impact on the industry today. Auto manufacturers that build cars here, that employ Canadians, are being forced to buy credits, to restrict their sale of gas-powered vehicles in this country, all to hit arbitrary sales targets. We should not be inflicting that sort of damage on the industry when we're dealing with a much bigger challenge, which is this tariff situation and the threat that the Americans are posing.
But if the EV mandate goes away and the tariff persists, there's still a competitive disadvantage there, right?
Absolutely. And the reality is no amount of government support will offset access to the world's largest automotive market. You know, there is no such thing as diversifying our industry away to other markets. We have to find some sort of mutually beneficial solution to this ongoing tariff challenge so that the industry can continue to thrive. If we don't have that, the case for building in Canada becomes extremely challenging.
There is no case to be building in Canada right now. If you are, I mean, if you're a tech startup, a genius, and your company's worth billion or several $billion and you're looking to expand, why would you come to Canada? Aside from our temperature, which sucks, right, in comparison to what you have access to in America. Like, what actual incentives do you have to come to Canada? You're paying higher taxes. You don't have access to healthcare immediately. You can't pay to skip the line. There's no two-tier healthcare system. There's a two-tier justice system, as we're finding out. Like, there's no benefits for companies, for businesses to operate in Canada other than just to say that they're operating. Like, you're losing money by operating here in Canada. That's quite literally why Mark Carney, right before running as prime minister, moved over Brookfield to America. Cheaper taxes. So what are we going to do? We're going to start lowering taxes for companies, incentivizing more economic growth in Canada? I don't know, but that's something that should be very much looked at. And well, it very much won't under the Liberals, especially, radical NDP people like David Eby, who is proud to be mean and nasty. Everything is, it's all bizarro world and opposite world right now. Let's take a listen.
Finally, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the comments of the American ambassador recently appointed about his support for the president's comments that Canadians are mean and nasty because we are boycotting American liquor and refusing to travel to the U.S. while they attack our sovereignty and threaten our economy through the president. Obviously, if you're a mean and nasty Canadian for standing up for our sovereignty and our economy and our jobs, well, I think most Canadians would be proud to be considered mean and nasty. But to be blunt, Americans are our friends, our colleagues, and family members in many cases. And the remarks the ambassador delivered were delivered at a conference, the Pacific Northwest Economic Region Conference. We've worked in close partnership with those states for many, many years on flood mitigation, economic growth, the Cascadia Corridor. It's grown our economies. We've all benefited from it.
It's so funny hearing him talk about economic growth when he literally helped BC Ferries, instead of them getting a contract here in Canada to build some more ships, which is the main transportation for all of the different islands and the lower mainland by water. Obviously, there's no bridges that connect anything out here. Instead of having a Canadian shipbuilder company build the ships, Seaspan, right out of Vancouver, he went to China. Absolutely insane. And the insanity doesn't end there. Doug Ford had this to say about Mark Carney. Doug Ford, by the way, is a conservative. Well, he's supposed to be a conservative, and it's just so disappointing time and time again.
Let me just give you a little background. Now you got me on a roll here. Okay. The Prime Minister was a Goldman Sachs guy. He worked on Bay Street. He was the chair of Brookfield, which I think is close to $1 trillion fund. Chair of Bloomberg, everyone knows Bloomberg. Bank of Canada governor, Bank of England governor. He has never said that in his entire time I've known him. He doesn't do that. He's very humble. He listens. He's a smart business person. And I always tell my business owners, who would you give the keys to? I'd hand the keys to a business over to the Prime Minister. He's business-minded. He has his hands full because of the last 10 years of what has happened in our country. He's playing cleanup right now, and we're going to be there to support him. But he's a very good man. He's off to a good start. He's an honest man, too. He just wants the best for Canada. He doesn't need to be doing this, I can assure you that. But he's given it everything he possibly can. And I think that's a consensus around the table. He's trying. He's a very smart, shrewd businessman. But thank you, everyone.
One hell of a endorsement for Mark Carney from Doug Ford. Oh my freaking goodness. I can't believe I'm blown away. This guy is part of the reason why Pierre Poilievre lost the federal election. He was literally seething and wanting to promote Mark Carney more than Pierre, who's a conservative. It blows my mind. He's not the only premier to do it. He's the one who's leading the charge on it, which is insanely bizarre, and also very much sucks because he has such a massive pull in Ontario, which is pretty much the make or break for federal elections. So that's very freaking disappointing. But hey, on the good news is that the cellular phone for Canada's business is off the charts with ringing. Every country, apparently, according to Mark Carney, wants to do business with Canada. It's just there's too many phone calls. Not enough people to pick up the phone. Let's take a look.
CTV News. Can you elaborate on what that means to get a good deal for Canada? Tangibly, what does that include? And if we can't get there, will Canada retaliate?
Well, the first thing is we're working positively for a deal. We'll take stock if there isn't one that works, but that depends on the overall circumstance. That's the first. The elements of what's positive, and let's start from the position of, really the longest standing and one of the largest trading relationships in the world between Canada and the United States, a relationship until recently that had been tariff-free, a relationship that has many integrated sectors, including the auto sector, the steel sector, the energy sector, and beyond. And so a good deal is something that preserves, reinforces, and stabilizes those relationships as much as possible. A good deal is also one that doesn't tie our hands in terms of other things that we can do so that we can pursue that positive agenda that we focus so much of our time on. And maybe just to go back to the start of your question, look, we have a lot to do in this country. We have a lot positive to do in this country, building this country in a way, building one Canadian economy. Our phone is ringing off the hook from other countries who want to do more with Canada. I've had over 80 bilaterals with world leaders since I became Prime Minister. A number of those premiers have been on major trade missions. We have other things to do, and so we're going to focus more and more of our time on those positive aspects going forward. Thank you.
I mean, ultimately, yeah, like we want to do business with countries. We want to have more stimulation into our economy. But at the same time, I think personally that we should be doing more business with America instead of going everywhere else. And when it comes to going everywhere else, President Trump has already said that he's going to block any of our trades if it seems like a national security risk to America. Now, you might not think that that's a national security risk. I might not think it's a national security risk. Hell, our own politicians, even our prime minister, could say it's not a national security risk. But as we're seeing with the whole border, the drugs, the fentanyl, and the ongoing tariffs, President Trump, if he says the word national security risk, then it's a national security risk. And so instead of working on our relationships with America, we're going elsewhere. And I just don't think that the grass is greener on the other side. But hey, that's me. That's me. I could be wrong. I could be right. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And then Danielle Smith did a one-on-one sit down with CBC to talk about a new pipeline where she says it needs to avoid the United States completely. A pipeline that only stays in Canada. Is that good? Is that bad? Let me know what you guys think, but let's take a listen.
This is talking about Line 5, right, which goes through Michigan and goes underwater, which the governor of Michigan has targeted. Are you talking about a clear plan to move ahead with the replacement for that? Oh, well, we definitely need to have the tunnel built for Line 5. I think what we're talking about is a backup plan because it looks to me like Enbridge slowly but surely is making their way through on a replacement on that line, and it's essential that they do that. But it has, I think, caused everyone to realize just how dependent we are, that we don't have an energy east that would have allowed us to be solely reliant or self-reliant. And I think that that's the conversation that we're having is how can we have energy self-security? But is this a direct one-for-one replacement for Line 5 that you're sort of talking about there, or is this a separate pipeline that could maybe carry fuel to refineries on the Great Lakes? It would be a separate pipeline. We'd have to find another route so that we have the ability to bring more oil to eastern Canada. Potentially, one of the proposals I've heard is have it stop at Thunder Bay, and then you can load it up on ships, and then you'd be able to feed the refineries in the East Coast. But Doug has also talked about the potential for us to have a pipeline route going up to James Bay. And then if you've got icebreakers, you can also find a way to get a route over to the East Coast and onto Europe. So I'm glad we're having these conversations because I think we need to look at multiple different options. To get from Alberta, you got to go through Saskatchewan. Mm-hmm. Scott Moe was there, but there's Manitoba between Saskatchewan and Ontario, and Wab Kinew was not there for this today. What's the deal? I've been so happy with how constructive Premier Kinew has been in talking about wanting to build out this port-to-port-to-port economic corridor is what we're talking about, that would go from about somewhere around Port of Prince Rupert all the way through to Port of Churchill or thereabouts. And one of the things that we're watching as Manitoba goes forward is they're looking at new ways of engaging Indigenous partners. I think that that's one of the aspects that Premier Kinew wants to do is to get those different mechanisms in place. We have a different way of engaging with Indigenous partners through our Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation.
situation where we underwrite loan guarantees for them to purchase into an equity stake. But I think that once he's a little bit more advanced on that, we'll be able to have the conversation with him. But I think he's been very positive about the idea of having an economic corridor and have all types of projects in there, including pipelines.
Yeah, Wob Canoe, you're inexperienced, boy. Better listen to Danielle Smith. I love that. Danielle likes to say it as she says it as she sees it, right? I mean, that's right on the money. But again, having a pipeline that completely doesn't touch America, I mean, that sounds pretty nationalistic. I don't remember exactly if that was included or not. I'm sure it was in the Conservative Party's campaign. I think that's good, right? We don't want to be reliant fully on America, but if we do have to do trade, which we have to do, then I think going to America first is what's in our best interest. But that's just how I view it. I could be very much wrong. But when it comes to this pipeline, what do you guys think about this? A pipeline that goes all the way from the west coast of BC all the way to the east coast, in Newfoundland, I guess, and it doesn't touch America. Can that even be done? Like, I know in theory it can be done, but can it actually be done? Can we get all provinces to agree to something like this? All Indigenous territories and land to unanimously agree with this? Can we make sure that it's fully protected? Because we know that climate activist crazies like Stephen Guilbeault or his followers are going to try to go and sabotage it, right? Like, we see constant radical activities from the left, and I have a fear that a pipeline that goes that far across the country would end up being a target at some point, right? A huge criminal offense. I mean, insanely. You'd be eco-terrorism at that point. But I wouldn't put it past people to put that in their crosshairs. And so, again, that being said, let's continue.
Certainly said this in business group speeches about Manitoba as a partner to get products to Tidewater. He's talked about the Western Economic Corridor, but it's more to the north. This one would be more to the south. Is there a difference, do you think, in the two in terms of Manitoba's tolerance and support?
I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, I would say that the entire country has changed their approach on major projects of national interest. When we did some polling to find out how people felt about pipelines, we saw over 70% support in most provinces, including a majority support in Quebec. And so I would say that people understand the threat of having a single customer, that we need to trade more with each other and support each other. That's part of what our MOUs are about, but also working together to find access to new markets. We'll just be stronger by doing so.
Okay, I know a lot of things have changed. I'm not sure British Columbia's position has changed dramatically. And you mentioned the Port of Prince Rupert, because David Eby, he was asked about this today, and he sort of dismissed the idea of a pipeline to the northern BC coast right now. So just listen to what the Premier of BC had to say. I'll get your response on the other side.
For the pipeline project that Premier Smith is a great enthusiast of, a heavy oil pipeline project, there is no project, there is no proponent, there is no private sector money involved at all that I'm aware of. When Premier Smith crosses those obvious hurdles to get a project done, then let's have those conversations. But to be blunt, we have major projects that are moving ahead, and that's where our focus is.
I'm getting some flashbacks to John Horgan and Rachel Notley. No. Should I? I mean, no. How optimistic are you with that kind of a
He said, she said, right?
We have so much that we're working on with Premier Eby. I'm so supportive of LNG. The fact that they've now got their first shipment out to Korea, that's fantastic news. We would love to see LNG Canada get to a final investment decision on their expansion. There's at least 3 other LNG projects. Very supportive of all of those. We're working together on trying to get ammonia shipped by rail to Port of Prince Rupert so that we can export to South Korea and Japan. And we're working on an intertie as well, because we think that our substantial wind and solar resources are really good backup for their hydro resources. So there's lots that we're working on together. We know that it's a stage gating, that there are certain projects right now that make more sense to do today, like the dredging of the Second Narrows and optimizing the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which the Premier has been very supportive of, as am I. But there are also, we have to start looking ahead 5 and 10 years. And if this is a window where we can start getting those permits in place so that we can start planning for the future. That's what we're looking towards. When I talk to the pipeline companies, they say every single one of them, the very best option for Canada to expand its markets, have a substantial new pipeline, is a pipeline to the Northwest BC coast. So that's part of the reason we'll be working on that.
Why does it have to be to the Northwest coast and not a further expansion of TMX?
Well, I think we understand and are sensitive to the fact that it's a pretty crowded port. I mean, you have to remember the first time we were talking about TMX, they were concerned about the number of ships that would be going through there because it is a crowded port. There's a lot that's going on there. What I like about Port of Prince Rupert is that they have an expansion plan to try to be, I think, the second biggest port in Canada. We already are exporting propane from there. There's a potential option for LNG from there as well. And it really gives you a clear run to wide open deep sea with an 8-day delivery to Korea and to Japan. There's a little bit more navigation issues the further south that you go.
Right.
And so that's part of the reason why we're looking at Port of Prince Rupert. We think that's probably the best option.
Okay.
So I think that the next move for Danielle Smith is going public then with the amount of money that's, being put forward to this, like all the demands that David Eby's saying, I need a list of all of these things, provide them and do it publicly. Force David Eby's hand publicly to commit to this, and then off to the races. And then all you're dealt with is Bob Canoe, and hopefully through some guidance, maybe you can coach him, Danielle Smith, Premier, and then Canada can move forward this. But I'd love to know your guys' opinions down below. Do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? Do you think any of this is realistically going to happen? Because it's awesome to say, hey, look, wow, maybe everybody's getting along, but until something actually happens, until construction starts, until not just money spent, but construction actually begins, because don't get me wrong, Liberals and our government love spending money. It's one of their favorite things to do. But as long as that money's being spent on boots in the ground, shovels in the ground, then hey, then maybe we've got some forward momentum for this country. But until then, I remain, I don't want to say skeptical, but wary. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Anyways, that's the end of the video, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in another one. Bye for now.